So this is the follow-up to one of the earliest reviews I did ever since I started doing comic book related stuff on YouTube, of course. If you don't know what I'm talking about my review to the first volume of New 52 Green Lantern titled Sinestro. It came out well over a year ago, I think. And, like, you guys can check it out on my channel if you want. I don't know if it's any good now that I've gotten significantly better, I think, at reviewing this kind of stuff. But I'm going to put a link down in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. And, yeah, with that little disclaimer out of the way, let us continue with the review itself. So this volume collects issues 7 to 12 and the Green Lantern Annual #1, all of which fit into this continued big overarching storyline that Geoff Johns has been building ever since he got on Green Lantern with Green Lantern Rebirth back in 2006. And what's really great about this whole kind of Green Lantern thing is that when I was reading Volume 1, I was able to just completely jump into this New 52 Green Lantern without knowing anything about, Green Lantern at all. I didn't know his power set, I didn't know anything about the character, or the core, or any of the mythos and stuff. And you can pretty much do something very similar here. Geoff Johns is able to make this book very dense with mythology and stuff, and kind of building up what was set up before in the old DC universe, and it's kind of being brought into this one, but it's also pretty accessible to new readers. And it's one of those trades that has a lot of stuff going on in it. You have the main Hal storyline with Sinestro, where they're taken by the Indigo Tribe. Later on you have a subplot with Black Hand, who kind of shows up near the end, even though the volume is named after him. Black Hand really doesn't play a role until the very end of the volume. And then you have the Guardians doing their thing. And I will say that if you have read the previous work of Geoff Johns like I have at this point, I've read Sinestro Corps War, I've read Blackest Night, I haven't read Brightest Day at all. But I have read the previous volumes, a lot of them. So I do have a pretty good grasp at what Geoff Johns is doing here, and this is the big culmination of his run. The whole point of his run was to bring back Hal Jordan and to basically bring about this kind of prophecy that was set up by Alan Moore in this kind of throwaway issue back in the 80s. And a piece of that prophecy has come and gone. The prophecy was that the dead would rise and the world would end, and that was Blackest Night, of course. And they were able to avert Blackest Night, and then Brightest Day was the next part of that prophecy, and that came and went as well. And now we're reaching the final stage of the prophecy where the Guardians have realized that they have failed the universe. The whole purpose, the whole goal of the entire Guardians species since the beginning has been that they want to bring order and peace to the universe by any means necessary. They tried to, they built the Manhunters, which were these machines that later became, arch nemeses of the Green Lantern Corps. They thought that all emotion was the source of evil and of conflict, so they created an army without emotion, essentially. But when you have no emotion, you just have protocols, and if a protocol isn't programmed right, or if a protocol kind of goes rogue, it can potentially kill more people than it can save. And this is why the Manhunters were abandoned. Then they thought the source of all evil was fear, but it didn't turn out that way. It was actually willpower. And so they wanted to create a new second army that was centered all around willpower. And recent events, such as the formation of these various other corps, like the Blue Lanterns, Red Lantern, Orange, Sinestro, Fear Lanterns, the Indigo Tribe, all of this has brought a lot of conflict to the universe, and they basically think that emotion is part of the problem, but they have realized that for their third army, they will create an army which all, will be destroyed. Free will, the ability to make decisions for yourself and to be able to think for yourself. They've come to the realization that that is the source of all evil, and this trade basically kind of sets that up, where it was set up in the first volume, but you really didn't know where it was going exactly. But now this is the volume where we see where Geoff Johns is reaching really the climax of his whole run. And this whole thing about is free will is free will a bad thing? Is it worth letting everyone have their own opinion on stuff, letting them do whatever they want with their lives and stuff? Is that really worth it if it's just going to bring more conflict into the world? But on the other side, if you eliminate free will, there's not going to be any enjoyment in life, basically. You're just going to be just like this empty husk of an automaton. You're going to do everything proper. No one's ever going to get into an argument. No one's ever going to have an opinion on anything. And that's a very cool theme that this trade does explore with the Guardian aspect of the storyline. The second part of the storyline, which is the main storyline, is Hal and Sinestro. They teamed up in the first volume to save Korugar from the Sinestro Corps, and the big theme of that arc is kind of redemption and to set up the Third Army some more. Now, the whole point of the Indigo Prophecy that is revealed here, and I'm going to have to... This is going to be kind of a spoiler-ish kind of review. I probably should have said this in the beginning, but this is something that I really have to talk about because it's like probably the most fascinating thing about the whole... about this whole volume, I guess, is that the Indigo Prophecy has always represented compassion. And compassion, to be compassionate, you have to have understanding for other people. And the Indigo tribe is the only tribe, I think, or the only, core, I guess, that is able to use the various other powers of the other cores. At a whim, they can use their own natural powers fueled by compassion. They can use willpower, they can use fear, they can even use jealousy, they can use the entire emotional spectrum, and it makes sense, because in order to have compassion, you have to have understanding, and if you have understanding, you can pretty much use other abilities. I guess it kind of makes sense when you look at it that way. And a big theme of the Indigo Tribe is redemption. The whole point of the Indigo Tribe, as revealed here, is that all of these guys were some of the worst serial killers, rapists, just the scum of the universe, basically enslaved by these indigo rings created by Abin Sur, the one who gave Hal Jordan his Green Lantern ring, and a member of a tribe that was enslaved by some of these horrible killers. And he basically decided that there needs to be kind of a way for these people to be redeemed, and if they can finally feel some compassion for other people, they may someday be revealed. And this whole core is kind of artificial when you think about it. When you put on the compassion ring, it's sort of it kind of brainwashes you, I guess. And Abin Sur and this tribe member, they thought that maybe they can get these guys to redeem themselves. Maybe they might feel something genuinely for other people without being brainwashed like they are. And that's a big theme of this whole arc, I guess, is Sinestro finding redemption. And there's a great line where the leader of the Indigo Tribe, the woman who murdered Abin Sur's daughter, and she's considered just one of the worst, creatures ever to walk the DC, universe. She finally is able to feel some compassion, and she's able to kind of restore the Indigo Tribe after something bad kind of happens to it. And she basically tells Hal, look, we're going to give you Sinestro if you tell me, do you actually believe this guy can be redeemed? And Hal would tell her, I want to believe that he can be redeemed. He wants to believe that Sinestro can hopefully maybe become a better person. Whether or not that's going to pan out later on, I don't know, because I haven't read the final volume of Jeff Johns' run, but I'm going to assume some more interesting stuff is going to happen here. But the whole dynamic between Hal and Sinestro is pretty damn interesting. It's pretty funny how these guys sort of play off each other. There's obvious hostility between them, but you can just sense that even though these guys are kind of enemies, they do kind of, sort of, maybe consider each other friends. And it's not like Batman and Joker where they're really hostile towards one another, or even Lex and Superman on some level. These guys do not like each other. But you can sense that these guys were friends at one point, or at least allies, and there is some of that coming back here. And their interaction is just really funny. Hal is kind of like more of the... He's not the comic relief. Sinestro is a straight man. He's all business. And Hal, he's the guy who's going to crack a joke. But even Sinestro is able to throw in a few good gags here and there. And Johns just gets Sinestro. There's this great moment where he's like... He doesn't have any power. and this guy is attacking him, and the dude manages to hurt Sinestro, and Sinestro just takes him by the head and starts bashing his face into a wall, and he says, "You dare attack me? I am Sinestro." And he's just bashing this dude's face in until his skull is like this big meat sack on the floor. It's gross and awesome at the same time. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this volume, if you already can't tell. I think this is just another great addition to the whole Geoff Johns Green Lantern saga. I don't know, if you don't like the Green Lantern concept or the character, I don't know how well this is going to work for you. But I like Green Lantern. I like the concept and stuff, and I really like how Johns has continued to handle this. This is the penultimate volume of his run. And I think that if you just take the first volume of the New 52 Green Lantern, just pick it up, I think you're going to be able to understand everything perfectly, or for the most part. If you're someone like me who gets interested by the first volume and you want to go back and read Sinestro, Core War, Rebirth, Blackest Night, all that stuff, you can, and I think that it's going to make this volume that much better because you're going to have a greater understanding of the previous cores and the mythology and all that stuff. But if you're not interested in that stuff and you just want to jump in with the New 52 volumes, I think you're going to be able to understand everything that's going on, and I think the emotional impact is still going to be there for you. If there's any complaint I can say, it's for the last issue, issue 12's art. Doug Mahnke draws the rest of this stuff, and I believe Ivan Reyes draws the annual. I'm not sure, but the rest of the art in the issues is pretty damn good. You know, it's fitting Green Lantern. The constructs have a lot of detail on them. The characters all look pretty distinct. Overall, it's pretty good art. It's nothing exceptional, but it is pretty good. The 12th issue has a big problem where they get a different artist, and it just doesn't look the same. It makes the transition is not right. I hate it when they get completely different guys to do fill-in artists. That's like giving Ivan Reyes issue 1, and then Stuart Immonen issue 2, and then David Aja issue 3. I just hate it when they do that. I wish they could have found someone who at least kind of looks like Doug Mahnke to keep the consistency, because the 12 issues art, it's not bad. It's just not as good as the rest of the volume's art, and it just doesn't flow properly for me. But yeah, I really enjoy this volume. I highly recommend you check it out. You're going to get a lot of content for this. You know, you get about 6 or 7 issues, I think, and you get a big-ass annual that sets up the next arc. And Volume 3 is already out, and that's about 8 or 9 issues. So you're getting a pretty good chunk of content for the money you're dishing out for this. So yeah, I highly recommend you guys check this out if you're a Green Lantern fan. If you're someone who's not really interested in the character, I recommend you maybe go check out Geoff Johns' earlier work to get a better handle on the character, I guess. But for those of you who have been reading it, I think this is something you definitely need to check out.